Good evening. Tonight, a developing story inside royal circles is stirring renewed conversation about legacy, loyalty, and the future direction of the monarchy. When palace historians look back on this chapter of modern royal history, they may well describe it as the moment when tradition met transition, and transition refused to blink. For decades, one unwritten rule quietly governed how senior royals handled internal controversy. Never speak directly, never inflame, never publicly isolate family. It was a principle closely associated with the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, a monarch who believed deeply in containment, composure, and the long game. But as the monarchy moves further into the era of King Charles III, and as Prince William prepares for the throne he will one day inherit, subtle shifts have become impossible to ignore. And among the most talked about moments, William's unmistakably deliberate tone when addressing the future of his uncle, Prince Andrew. Some saw it as clarity. Others called it defiance. Inside palace circles, a quieter word surfaced. Departure. Departure from the late Queen's method. Departure from silent shielding. Departure from family-first discretion at any cost. What made William's remarks so striking was not their volume. They were not explosive, nor dramatic, nor overtly accusatory. Instead, they were measured, intentional, structured, and pointedly future-focused. In public engagements and private discussions that later filtered into royal commentary, William reportedly emphasized one phrase repeatedly: the monarchy must earn its place through service and accountability. To seasoned royal observers, that language carried weight. Because during the late Queen's reign, accountability was often handled behind closed doors. When allegations engulfed Prince Andrew following his association with convicted offender Jeffrey Epstein, Buckingham Palace's strategy was cautious, legalistic, and protective. Andrew stepped back from public duties. Military titles were returned, patronages reassigned. But the institution itself avoided overt moral commentary. The focus remained procedural. It was the Queen's way: minimize spectacle, preserve stability. William's approach, by contrast, appears rooted in reputational survival. Sources close to royal operations suggest that William views public trust not as inherited capital, but as renewable and fragile. In his generation, silence does not equal dignity. It risks appearing evasive. That generational contrast has fueled speculation that William's words were more than off-the-cuff remarks. They were signals. Signals to the public. Signals to Parliament. Signals to the family. And perhaps most importantly, signals about the monarchy's future operating model. Unlike his grandmother, William has grown into adulthood during an era of 24-hour scrutiny and social media amplification. He understands that narratives do not pause, they accelerate. His comments, though diplomatically framed, implied that the institution cannot afford ambiguity where public confidence is concerned. Some royal commentators interpreted this as a quiet but firm distancing from Andrew, not merely in terms of duties, but in symbolic alignment. Under Queen Elizabeth's reign, Andrew remained her son first, public liability second. Under William's anticipated reign, that hierarchy may invert. Insiders suggest that William's loyalty lies foremost with the institution's long-term credibility, and with protecting the legacy he will one day pass to his own children, including Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Those close to the Prince of Wales say his thinking is guided by one question: what must the monarchy look like in 30 years? It is a forward-looking calculus, and it has, according to palace watchers, created quiet tension, not confrontation, that would contradict royal discipline, but recalibration. Because while King Charles has maintained a careful balance regarding his brother's situation, William appears more decisive, less inclined toward prolonged gray areas, more willing to define boundaries publicly. This difference does not necessarily represent family conflict. Rather, it reflects evolving leadership styles shaped by different eras. Queen Elizabeth ascended the throne in 1952. Her monarchy navigated post-war Britain, decolonization, constitutional shifts, and media transformation. Her survival strategy was steadiness above all. William, by contrast, is preparing to reign in a Britain grappling with Republican debates, cost-of-living crises, and intensified scrutiny of public institutions. His philosophy seems built around demonstrable integrity. Royal aides describe him as methodical, someone who rehearses phrasing carefully, which is why many believe his remarks regarding Andrew were intentional in their firmness. The late Queen rarely permitted public distancing language about family members. William, however, appears willing to articulate standards explicitly. This shift has prompted debate. Is he modernizing the monarchy, or breaking with the stabilizing restraint that defined Elizabeth's reign? Supporters argue that transparency strengthens survival. Critics worry that drawing sharper lines risks publicizing internal fractures. Yet the broader picture reveals something deeper. William's generation of royals, including his wife, Catherine, Princess of Wales, have consistently emphasized mental health, accountability, and community engagement. Their projects often highlight openness rather than opacity. This ethos extends to crisis management, where older royal doctrine prioritized never complain, never explain. William's model appears closer to address and move forward. That difference matters. In recent years, polls have suggested that public tolerance for perceived privilege without responsibility has narrowed. William's rhetoric aligns with that climate. And then there is symbolism. Royal symbolism is rarely accidental. When William focuses his public agenda on environmental advocacy, mental health, homelessness, and youth empowerment, he shapes a monarchy rooted in social relevance. Allowing controversy to linger unaddressed would undermine that narrative. Therefore, his firm tone on Andrew was not simply familial commentary, it was brand management for the crown. Still, observers caution against overstating rupture. William has not condemned his uncle personally. He has not initiated dramatic public exile. Instead, he has reinforced a structural truth: working roles must reflect public trust. It is a principle likely to define his future reign. Some insiders say the late Queen herself understood that each monarch must adapt methods to their moment. While Elizabeth favored discretion, she also valued duty above sentiment. Would she have disagreed with William's approach? That question remains speculative. What is certain is that William's language marked a psychological turning point. A moment where the heir to the throne demonstrated that he is prepared to make difficult distinctions between family and function. In doing so, he signaled readiness. Readiness to inherit not just the throne, but its burdens. The monarchy's endurance has always depended on evolution disguised as continuity. Queen Elizabeth mastered continuity. William appears poised to master calibrated evolution, and in that evolution, bold words, even carefully measured ones, matter. They tell the public that the next generation is watching, learning, and when necessary, redefining. For Prince William, the future of the crown may hinge not on protecting tradition at all costs, but on proving that tradition can coexist with accountability. His remarks on Prince Andrew did not shout, they did not accuse, but they resonated. Because sometimes in royal history, the quietest departures speak the loudest. If Prince William's earlier remarks were a signal, the reaction inside royal circles was the echo. In the days that followed his carefully worded comments, palace aides reportedly moved with unusual precision. Briefings were sparse. Public schedules continued uninterrupted. There were no dramatic statements issued from Buckingham Palace, but the silence itself felt structured. Veteran royal correspondents noted that this was not the traditional waited-out strategy long associated with Queen Elizabeth II. Under her reign, the palace often relied on time as a stabilizer. Scandals cooled, public outrage shifted, headlines moved on. What felt different now was the sense of consolidation. sources suggested that internal discussions focused less on defending Prince Andrew and more on defining operational boundaries for the future. The distinction is subtle, but profound. Where once the question might have been, how do we protect him? The framing appeared closer to, how do we protect the institution? That pivot speaks volumes about the evolving dynamic between generations. At the center of this delicate recalibration stands King Charles III, monarch, brother, and bridge between eras. Charles has long been described as deeply conscious of public perception. During his decades as heir, he experienced firsthand how controversy can shape narratives for years. Yet his instinct often leans toward familial loyalty. Observers suggest that his approach to Andrew has reflected that balance: firm removal from official duties, yet avoidance of explicit condemnation. William's tone, however, has been perceived as sharper, not emotionally, but structurally. It communicates a threshold. Palace insiders describe father and son as aligned on the broad objective of a streamlined monarchy, but potentially differing in pacing. Charles, shaped by decades of royal discipline under his mother's reign, moves deliberately. William, raised amid relentless media cycles, appears more comfortable with clarity. It is not conflict. It is evolution in real time. Those who have watched Prince William closely over the years say he is not impulsive. His public interventions are rare, which makes them powerful. His Earthshot environmental initiative demonstrated a forward-thinking leadership style rooted in measurable impact. His mental health advocacy reshaped how the royal family engages with vulnerability and openness. So when he speaks about accountability within the monarchy, it carries strategic weight. One former courtier described William's mindset succinctly: "He is thinking in decades, not headlines." The Andrew controversy, while deeply personal to the family, also represents a broader reputational test. William appears determined to ensure that future reigns, including his own, are not perpetually tethered to unresolved questions from the past. This perspective becomes especially significant when viewed through the lens of his children's future roles: Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. William has often emphasized stability for them, a childhood shielded from unnecessary turbulence. Institutional clarity today, in his view, may secure their tomorrow. Under Queen Elizabeth, deference toward the monarchy was largely assumed. Today, it must be earned daily. The digital landscape has transformed how institutions survive scrutiny. Social media platforms amplify criticism instantly. Investigative reporting circulates globally within minutes. Silence can be interpreted as indifference. William's approach appears shaped by this environment. His generation understands that reputational risk compounds quickly. Addressing structural issues early, even delicately, can prevent long-term erosion of public confidence. In this context, his comments about Andrew read less like family commentary and more like governance philosophy. The monarchy, he seems to suggest, is not insulated from consequence. That framing marks a subtle departure from earlier royal doctrine. Close observers often note the steady influence of Catherine, Princess of Wales, in William's public evolution. Catherine's approach to royal duty emphasizes modern engagement, early childhood development research, mental health awareness, community-based initiatives. Her projects are evidence-driven, transparent, and socially anchored. Together, the Prince and Princess of Wales present a united model of future leadership, service rooted in accountability. While Catherine has not commented on Andrew's situation publicly, her partnership with William reinforces the image of a next-generation monarchy defined by clarity and purpose. Still, the late Queen's shadow looms large. Her reign was defined by steadiness through turbulence, from political shifts to family scandals. Her ability to maintain composure under pressure became a hallmark of the crown's resilience. Critics of William's firmer tone argue that overt boundary-setting risks appearing reactive. The monarchy's strength, they say, has always rested in quiet endurance rather than visible recalibration. But supporters counter that endurance without adaptation invites irrelevance. In truth, both approaches reflect their historical contexts. Elizabeth reigned in a world where authority flowed downward from the institution. William is preparing to reign in a world where legitimacy flows upward from public consent. The story unfolding is larger than any single remark. It is about generational transfer. It is about the recalibration of royal communication. It is about defining what working royal status means in the 21st century. Prince William's words on Prince Andrew did not erupt with drama. They did not violate decorum. They did not spark open conflict. But they signaled that the future king is prepared to articulate standards, and that, in itself, represents a profound moment of transition. For now, Prince Andrew remains outside official royal duties. The palace maintains structured distance without theatrical rupture. King Charles continues steering the monarchy through careful modernization. And William, quietly but unmistakably, positions himself as the architect of its next phase. History often remembers monarchs for the battles they fought or the speeches they delivered. But sometimes, legacy is shaped in subtler ways, through tone, through phrasing, through a deliberate shift in emphasis. William's bold words did not defy tradition recklessly. They reframed it, and in doing so, they may have defined the blueprint for the monarchy he intends to lead. One where service is visible, accountability is explicit, and loyalty to the crown ultimately means loyalty to its integrity above all else. While much of the public conversation has focused on constitutional precedent and media strategy, there is also a deeply human dimension beneath the surface. For Prince Andrew, the transformation from senior working royal to permanently sidelined family member represents more than a public demotion. It marks a dramatic shift in identity. For decades, Andrew's life revolved around naval service, trade envoy roles, and ceremonial appearances under the protection of Queen Elizabeth II. During her lifetime, many believed the Queen's personal loyalty acted as a stabilizing shield around her son. Even amid controversy, her instinct was maternal as much as monarchic. But after her passing, that protective layer inevitably weakened. With King Charles III now sovereign and Prince William increasingly influential in shaping strategic direction, the tone has undeniably shifted. Andrew's absence from official state events is no longer described as temporary. It feels permanent, and permanence carries emotional consequences within any family, royal or otherwise. Royal analysts point out that William's approach has not been confrontational. He has not publicly criticized his uncle. He has not used inflammatory language. Instead, he has consistently emphasized principles: accountability, public trust, and relevance. That consistency matters. By framing the issue structurally rather than personally, William avoids appearing vindictive. The focus remains on institutional credibility rather than individual fault. It is a careful line to walk. Too harsh, and he risks appearing divisive within his own family. Too soft, and he risks undermining the message of reform. So far, his strategy appears to be calibrated restraint, firm boundaries without spectacle. Polling over recent years has indicated declining tolerance among segments of the British public for perceived royal privilege detached from visible service. Younger generations, in particular, express strong expectations of transparency and accountability from public institutions. William, attuned to this generational mood, appears to understand that the monarchy's long-term survival depends on adapting to those expectations. Unlike earlier eras, when loyalty to the crown was culturally ingrained, today's legitimacy is negotiated continuously. That is the environment William is preparing to navigate. And in that context, his firm stance regarding Andrew may be less about distancing from a family member and more about protecting the monarchy's social contract. Observers often note how intentionally Catherine, Princess of Wales, and William structure their public image. Their initiatives, from early childhood development to environmental innovation, emphasize measurable impact and social value. Their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, are being raised with carefully managed visibility, balancing normalcy with preparation. It is widely believed that William's decisions today are filtered through one central question. What kind of monarchy will George inherit? A monarchy burdened by unresolved reputational damage, or one that has confronted difficult realities directly? That perspective reframes his comments entirely. They are not reactive, they are preventative.